Ingrid, thanks so much for coming back on the Scholarship GPS podcast. It has been a while, and I've been looking forward to our conversation. For those who didn't hear your last appearance, why don't you introduce yourself?
So my name is Ingrid Moats. And again, thanks, Dave, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on the podcast with you. I run a small math tutoring business where we really help students to develop the math skills necessary for college. So we start a younger age to make sure that they have the firm foundations, and then we even help students in high school so that they can be on track to do well in mathematics in college.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, we're going to cover a lot of ground, but my first reason for reaching out to you to ask you to come back on the show was that you recently were a scholarship provider. You offered a scholarship, and I thought, oh, I know Ingrid. This would be a really great opportunity to have somebody that I'm friends with to talk about what it's like to offer a scholarship because coming from the other side from my listeners and the students I work with, um, you have a really unique perspective that I think would be very helpful for the listeners. So that's kind of what we're going to primarily talk about, but then we'll also talk about some of the things that you're doing at Tampa Bay Test Prep. So
Awesome.
cool. Well, I guess my first question, let's start real basic, is like, why did you offer a scholarship? What was your goal for it?
So I've always been passionate about scholarships. That's particularly why, we connected.
Hmm.
I feel like every single student should look for a scholarship that fits them and get that money. I mean, the amount of hours that I put in personally, my son and I both won scholarships, and I feel like that ended up calculating out to be hundreds of dollars per hour that I
Yeah.
put in. Plus, it was really exciting to do something neat and eventually win, and then find out that I could use that money for college and so on and so forth. So it's a passion close to my heart. As well, I think it's a great way for us to kind of send the message about what we believe. And so, we are a math organization. We've actually added a name to our organization. It was called Tampa Bay Test Prep, but also called the Math Gift. And it's
Yeah.
because, like I said, we really believe in math. And so our scholarship offering is to help students who feel the same way connect with us and then receive money for just showing their passion and their interest. So we love scholarships. And so I was like, this year I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and offer my own scholarship rather than waiting for, that day in the future to come. Got to do it now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yep. Um, well, you hosted your scholarship on a platform called bold.org. This is not a commercial for them. I'd like to talk a little bit maybe about why you chose them, but also I want to kind of expand the perspective of this question because a lot of people feel like these scholarship platforms are a scam and they're just data collection tools. So, why did you, as somebody offering a scholarship, choose to use Bold?
So first it was recommended to me because I
Okay.
also didn't know how I wanted to get started.
Hmm.
And after I looked them up, they were really good about working with me as a first time kind of scholarship company. Um, and they actually walked me through the process of how to lay out my scholarship and gave me advice on certain things to include. If I had questions or I wasn't sure about what to do, they were very responsive and they were very
Hmm.
caring. In fact, they set up a Zoom call with me before we even started to make sure that we were both on the same page about what my goals were in offering the scholarship and what they would do to help me out. Um, and it was such a nice process in terms of they gave me enough time to make
Hmm.
sure that I could declare the scholarship before the school year was out or right at
Hmm.
the end of the school year. So they helped me with the timeline, how much time I needed to give people to participate in the scholarship. They reviewed my writings, which, as anybody, including our scholarship writers, it's very
Yeah.
easy to make mistakes in your
Yes.
writing, even when five or six people have looked it over. And
Hmm.
so they also reviewed it. And then that made me feel a lot better that they were going to reach out to the clients. They were going to reach out to the scholarship recipients and make sure that they received the scholarship.
Yep.
So there was a lot of criteria. They wanted to make sure that the students would get the money for college, which was really neat to me. They helped me with things that I was confused about. And they helped me with my wording. And so I felt like that would give the students the best experience in participating by going through bold.org.
That's awesome. And yeah, one of the things that I try to drive home to people is that just like you are in the business of helping students with math, you're not in the business of scholarships, right? And so that's what these platforms provide is they're in the business of getting people like you and, multinational organizations like Coca-Cola, who are offering scholarships in front of students and parents. They kind of bridge that gap. And there's all different flavors of these organizations. I have a resource of the scholarship websites that I recommend. People can get that for free, scholarshipgps.com/scholarship dash websites. And it kind of gives the pros and cons of all of the ones that I regularly recommend. Bold is definitely on that list. And one of the things people may not know is that Bold is actually a nonprofit organization. So um, that might give a little comfort to other to people listening. But other scholarship websites are for profit, but it's still in their best interest to offer legitimate scholarships and to hopefully treat their database right with students and parents who are in there. So yeah, some are more spammy than others, but a little bit of spam email I don't think is a huge price to pay for being able to earn scholarships. So anyway, so good. I hope that gives some clarity to people to understand, in this case, Bold in particular, but just how these, why these sites exist and why, it wouldn't have been effective for you to just post your scholarship just on your website because people may not know about you, right? But they do know to go to scholarship websites. So,
Yeah, I think that we ended up, we're probably going to ask me more questions, but we ended up with over 100 applicants.
okay,
You know,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
quite substantial for the two scholarships that we offered.
hmm
And it's hard to narrow it down. And I'm sure we'll talk about the whole process of
yeah,
doing that. But I was really happy to be able to make it easy for, at least I hope it was easy for the students to find us, get the link, and enter their scholarship application to me.
hmm
And so I really liked how Bold made it easy on my end.
yeah. Um, Refresh my memory. This was a scholarship open to students nationwide, correct?
Correct. So we did a
Yeah.
senior scholarship.
Okay.
So it was focused on seniors, and we were asking students to do several things. One thing we were asking was them to write
hmm
about how math impacted them or why they felt math was important,
hmm
paraphrasing it. And then we also asked them for a second thing. You know, in this day and age with AI, we really want that personal connection. We're not asking for a perfectly polished, like movie quality video
hmm
or even a essay that looks like it's, graduate school level writing.
Sure.
Really, we wanted to see that somebody was passionate about mathematics. They could see that math was being used everywhere
hmm
and that they were sharing with us what it meant to them and who they were. And so, with between the essay and the video, we felt like we got a good glimpse into who the students are, and how they fit the prompt that we were giving.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I love that you kind of had that two-stage process to, yes, it gives students the opportunity to hopefully write without AI or very minimal use of AI, but then that video process, like you said, it didn't have to be professionally produced. It was a way that you could kind of validate their entire application that, yeah, this is a real student who has these real interests or real understanding of how math is used every day. Um, One of the things that caught my attention was you mentioned that you got 100-ish applications, which I just want to point out to people listening, like for a national scholarship, you're not competing against thousands or tens of thousands of students. You're competing against roughly 100, maybe 200 kids. So sure, you need to submit a good application, but it's not like the odds are like winning the lottery here, right?
No, not at all. I felt like you know, 100 was really reasonable. And if I can go ahead and go into a little bit more detail about how we
Yeah,
sorted students,
yeah, that's great.
a lot of those applicants didn't even qualify for
Mhm,
our process because they didn't touch on the topic.
mhm.
Um, Really, it probably would have boiled down to maybe 30 that
Okay.
could even make the first cut.
Yep.
So you're really not competing against 100 if you follow the directions that are given to you you will make the first cut for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yep.
people just didn't follow directions. They didn't give a video. They didn't write the essay. They weren't on topic. There's very clear, especially, from my end, I feel like it's very clear that I want part A, part B, part C in the way that I've structured the sentence for the scholarship. So I was like, please give me this, this, and that.
Hmm.
I don't break it down to A, B, and C, but I want to see all of those parts.
Yeah.
Just like if you're in school, I want to see all of those sections because that's what I'm requesting. And
Mhm.
when a student delivers on all that, I'm like, yes, you made the first cut. Now I'm going to have to narrow it down from there. But no, we had only probably a good 30 that would have made the first cut.
Yeah, and that's very consistent with other people I've talked to who provide scholarships, is that it's typically more than half don't even qualify because either maybe they literally don't meet the eligibility requirements or they don't follow directions like you were saying. So yeah, that's really the first step is just simply following directions, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, I would have loved for everyone to follow directions, um,
absolutely. Yeah,
but that's what ended up. And that's where you show the effort. I think the second piece
exactly.
of it is the effort. Like
Hmm.
for mine, I was looking for passion, that you actually cared about the subject. And I think, I don't know enough about scholarships in general, but I know that when I was writing my own scholarship it was a community-based organization I was writing about water
Okay.
rights.
Hmm.
And I was really excited to write about it, even though I didn't know everything. I was so excited to write about it. I ended up writing a story, which
Okay.
made it
Yeah.
unique compared to
Yeah.
everybody else. But
Yep.
I felt like they understood my passion, and I ended up getting a one for the state. And my son,
Okay.
same thing. He was writing about beekeeping.
Okay.
And so we worked on making sure that his sentence structure and his information came across very clearly
Hmm.
that he was interested and knowledgeable about what he was talking about. So I mean, that's what I was looking for first is that did you show your passion in the way
Yeah.
you're writing, your clarity, organization? If you had a few grammar mistakes, I wouldn't have cared about it. But it does show effort. If you go back in, you have somebody help you review it, make sure you don't have grammar issues, you don't have any spelling issues, especially on the essay portion.
Yeah. Yep. Was there anything else that made essays stand out? You mentioned, at least in your case, storytelling. Um, was that a good way to pick some of your top candidates?
Yes, I wanted to hear the personalization.
Hmm.
Um, I think that makes it different, especially again in this day of AI. I want the story to be relevant to you. So if you cared about math and you're helping cook cookies in the kitchen, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to save the world, but I
Yeah.
want to know that you measured in
Mhm.
fractions in the kitchen and that you can clearly communicate to me that's what you're doing that's relevant to math. And how does it serve other people? Well, you're giving other people cookies that you cooked, baked based on mathematics. I
Hmm.
think stories are really important. I wanted to see somebody include a personal story. I didn't want them to say, like, this is the history of mathematics, because I feel
Right.
like that's disconnected from them. And that's the particular type of scholarship that we offered. Somebody else might
Right.
have a different kind, but that's the one
Sure.
that I was looking for.
Yeah, yep. Again, it goes back to following directions, but then that second piece, storytelling and showing passion and, relating it to the topic and inserting yourself as the student into this and, demonstrating impact, like you said. Even it's not curing cancer. It's I made some cookies and I shared the cookies with somebody. Like it doesn't you don't have to change the world, but you do need to usually show some kind of impact in a meaningful and in a way that relates to the topic of the essay, right?
Yeah, I think one of our candidates for sure showed that. She showed the before and after for her personal story.
Uh-huh.
I maybe didn't like math, and then I was able to learn that I liked math, or her story was something like I had people around me who didn't necessarily like math, but when I was working with them, I saw that their confidence grew. By seeing that before and after, I could see the impact of math both on her and the people around her.
That's awesome. It's mostly parents who are listening to the podcast. Do you have any advice for them as they're working with their student through the scholarship process?
Yeah, I think as a parent and working with my son on the scholarship process, one of the things I did was check in with him to make sure he was following the prompt. So I would make sure that, do you have all these different elements? We would talk about an outline because
Hmm.
that was the way I learned in school. And I felt like that was a really good way to start off. So we outlined it based on what he said. It wasn't my wording, it was his wording, his
Hmm.
ideas. But I helped him learn how to structure it. And once I helped him learn how to structure it, then he went and wrote it. And then I would help him review it. Like, hey, are there some areas where you can improve on this? What do you want to improve? That wasn't my writing, it was his.
Hmm.
What could you word this better? Can you, is there any way that you could maybe reorganize things? Left it to him, but definitely gave my like kind of editorial comments on what I was seeing. And then he submitted it with his own wording, his own writing.
Hmm.
And I was really excited. So, same thing for our scholarship winners. I think from a parent's point of view, is it easy to read? One of the things I really liked was the students who separated out their paragraphs and made it
Oh,
easier rather
yes.
than having one big block.
Yes. Yep.
Did they include, like an idea for each sentence, each paragraph, just the very
Hmm.
basics? One paragraph has another idea, another paragraph has another idea. If it was one big block or the paragraphs weren't separated, just made it harder to read. And when you're
Yep.
going through so many different applications, 100, I can't take if I did a minute per each,
Mhm.
that it was more than that. Like I had to
Yeah,
have the
of
whole
course.
team come and look at it because
Yeah.
that could just easily be over 2 hours just reviewing the application. So you want to make it easy for the person who's reading to glance at it, make a really quick initial decision, and we don't have time to go back. As much as I would have wanted to go back and review some of the other ones, I'd like, I have a lot of good candidates. I already have
Hmm.
over 10. I can't go back and review somebody's again. So your first impression is organization, easy to read, very clear, and it flows.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of a logistical question, and this is not going to apply for every scholarship, but I'll have a follow-up as you answer this. Did you know or have access to the students' stats, like their GPA, test scores, or was this based solely on their essay and video?
So I did have access to the other items. I, in a dream world, I would have preferred not to.
Hmm, interesting. Okay.
Because I like to go in blind. My particular scholarship, we kept the GPA a little bit lower um, because I'm not looking for somebody who was a 5.0 student. I was
Okay.
actually hoping to encourage students who weren't 5.0s to participate. And 5.0 being the AP, super
Yeah, yeah,
honors
weighted
kid,
weighted scale. Yep.
not a
Yeah.
4.0 scale.
Yeah.
But what I did find is that the students who ended up winning, one of them was valedictorian. And it
Okay.
wasn't
Okay.
because I was intentionally looking for it, but because he put extra effort. I was really surprised that he took the effort to not only make a video, but he had like three different scenes in his video
Oh, wow. Okay.
where
Okay.
again, it wasn't like movie production, but
Yeah.
he was showing things that he enjoyed with bats. So he talked first. I saw his picture, his video of his face, and
Hmm.
then he looked outside and took a video of something outside and talked about how that was math related. Took a
Yeah.
video of something he had in his room. Again, not perfect video because it was kind of
Hmm.
a little shaky, but the
Yeah.
fact that he was willing to put an effort in to take three pieces and put them together, I was like, wow, that really stands out. And then
Yeah.
on top of it, not only did it stand out, but it was on target with the prompt.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And the fact that he was valedictorian was incidental. It had really no bearing on your decision, right?
Yeah, that was not,
Yeah.
I was not looking for valedictorians. In fact, my whole goal was not to pick valedictorians, but
Yeah.
he just stood out so much.
Right.
That's why
Right.
he ended up getting picked.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the kind of the takeaway then is that scholarships are not necessarily awarded to the quote top student, right? It's more about is the student the best fit for this scholarship and its goals?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
a little bit like when you're down to the last 10, it is tough. It gets tougher.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
what's the differentiating factor between maybe so we only had two scholarships, number two and number three. Could have been, you know, this person was just a little bit more clear in their language versus the other person.
Hmm.
They were a little bit more on prompt versus the other person. They put a little bit more effort in what they were doing and, maybe putting, that extra space in because
Yeah.
it really is that hard when you're down to your last few students to pick from.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, you mentioned something in passing before we hit the record button, and that was the impact that math is having in the college admissions process. We're gonna kind of shift gears here because you're my one of my go-to math experts. Like, what did you mean by that? Explain it to me, and then our audience will get to hear it as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that a lot of your audience is looking at scholarships because they're getting the funds for college. And one of the things that has been in the news even more is this whole idea of having test optional applications.
Yeah.
And if you look at the articles from like UC Berkeley and the professors saying that, hey, we've got students who don't even know algebra in our classes, and they're not even able to teach them at level what
Hmm.
they're supposed to know.
Right.
That really breaks my heart. That's one of
Sure.
the messages I try to get across to my parents and my students is start early on getting them college ready, making sure that they're at level. And if you chose to do test optional, just remember these tests are an indicator of the skills the colleges are looking for.
Hmm.
So how else are you demonstrating those skills? Um, Basically, what I'm saying is make sure your student really does know the material. A's don't always mean that they're college ready,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And even University of Michigan said that 30% of their students dropped out of their engineering program in their
Mm.
first year. I would think that if I'm applying to engineering, I want to be in the engineering program. I wouldn't want to be out of it. So
Sure.
what is the discrepancy there? Maybe they really weren't ready.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
even if they wanted to do it, they didn't have the math skills or the science skills. And so I'm just, this is a call out to parents to start early, start making sure that the scores that your students are getting is really based on knowledge. Or if
Mhm.
it's not, go and fill in those gaps to make sure your student is truly ready. My own personal story is very similar. Like I went to a top high school, and when I went to UC Berkeley, the math at UC Berkeley was so tough because I
Mhm.
didn't learn certain things in school.
Mhm.
It wasn't hard enough. It wasn't rigorous enough. There were topics that I should have known that I didn't know. And I was, straight A's in mathematics pretty much. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's something that we need to be concerned about because it starts early on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if you have one bad year of teaching, and we know a lot of students have gone through some bad years of teaching, not
Sure.
be for the teacher side, but just because the education system, sometimes the math isn't as high of a level in difficulty as we would want it to be.
Hmm.
And so the students might have a great year, like I have a student right now, great year in algebra, it was super easy. But the summer, we're filling in those gaps because there's some things that are just missing.
Yeah. 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 I've talked with other folks in kind of the test prep space, and sure, it's their business, so they do want to promote the need for testing, but the data shows that the students who do well on these standardized test scores tend to be the students who have more success in college. They're more college ready. And are they perfect? Of course not. But they are maybe one of the better indicators that we have. And so the other piece of it is schools like you said in the UC system, they're maybe moving away from being test optional. Lots of schools, particularly big schools here in the South, just this last year, eliminated the option to apply test optional. So um, yeah, just food for thought for people to ponder over.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. And we could send the message early. It's never too late. Your kid can still, take some of the time right now, wherever they are, just to get assessment, find out where
sure.
they are, where the gaps
Yeah,
are, and you can continually move towards the goal, and get them college ready or career ready,
yeah,
whichever they need.
yep, absolutely. Ingrid, this has been awesome, but before I let you go, I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your business, maybe some of the things you're working on, and we'll wrap up after that.
Awesome. Yeah. So my business, Tampa Bay Test Prep, also known as the Math Gift, we help students all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade with filling in gaps, but also getting them college ready and even engineering ready.
Mm,
So that means that we might be teaching topics you never have a chance to see in school. Things like number theory, counting and probability, things that math geeks like me find incredibly fun and also very rewarding. And students, like my son went through some of these programs and found that it made such a difference in his engineering at Purdue. You know, that the
mm,
classes
mm.
weren't so difficult if you got some of this background knowledge early on. So we're offering competition math classes. We also do very particular SAT, ACT prep just for math. And we're also helping students at an early age if they've struggled with like word problems or they have gaps in their knowledge. We help with assessment. So people can reach us at themathgift.com or support at themathgift.com, and we'd love to talk to them more.
Awesome. Well, of course, I'll put your link and contact info in the show notes. Ingrid, this has been so helpful, so informative. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Of course, I'm going to ask you to come back sometime in the near future, but appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Thank you, Dave. It's been great being with you today.
Thanks.